Hello viewers! Are you looking to buy a used car? Something that'll serve you nicely in the next few years. Now I know this is an exciting moment, but it also carries some risks. Is the vehicle you've set your eyes in a good condition? How well was it maintained? Or has it been in a major crash? Those are just some of the questions to which you'll want to know an answer before giving your hard-earned cash to the seller. And in this video, I'll explain what to look for, inside and out, when buying a used car. Let's go! The search for a car almost always starts at your home, with you going to various internet marketplaces and looking what's being offered. Now, assuming you already have some particular model in mind, the first thing you want to do is to get some facts about it. The things you'll want to know are what production years are good and what are better to avoid, which engines have proven as reliable and which are troublesome or difficult to maintain, and what are the common issues that you might come across with it. One good place you can dig all this out is our website, where we have gone through many popular models in detail. You also want to know what prices these cars usually go for to get a feel of what's currently some realistic value for the particular year and model. The fact is, some sellers just want too much for their vehicles without anything to justify paying the extra money. In general, prices range depending on the mileage, condition and trim levels, but also many times the engines and transmissions, with those proven as durable and reliable being more costly. Finally, having picked a car that suits your needs and desires and whose price is acceptable, contact the seller and arrange to come and see it. While doing so, you may want to ask about the vehicle's general condition, if there are any apparent flaws or defects to report, and so on. There is no need to go into much details here, as you're going to inspect the car yourself anyway, but it doesn't hurt to have some additional info up ahead. By the way, what I'd suggest is checking the vehicle's history using one of many websites that specialize in this. Carfax, WinSpy, Car Vertical and similar. Here you enter the car's VIN and you'll get the full report with mileage records throughout the years, if it had been in an accident or even worse, report stolen. The inspection, especially its visual part, so to say, starts at the very same moment you arrive at a location while walking toward your would-be future car. Just walk around it and see how it looks as a whole, trying to spot anything that seems odd. The trick here is to focus on body panels, how they fit together and if the gaps between them are consistent all around, or if the paint job on one or more of them looks kind of different from the rest of the vehicle. For instance, if the gap between this fender is narrower than the one on the other side, it's most likely it's been replaced, probably after an accident, and that the job wasn't done very professionally, especially if the paint looks a bit different. Also, look at the side of the car from a narrow angle. From this point of view, all the body lines should appear straight as an arrow. If you see any wavering, it's quite possible some damage and afterward repairs were done at that area. Here's a cool trick you can use while checking the bodywork. Take an ordinary fridge magnet and put it on suspicious looking areas, or those that are commonly damaged. Wheel arches, sills, doors and so on. If it sticks, that's okay. But if it falls off immediately, that means there's a thick layer of sealant and filler under the paint, indicating that the area was damaged and then repaired. Now obviously you're quite likely to spot some scratches or minor dents here and there, but this on its own shouldn't be a cause for concern. After all, you're looking at a car that's been used for years and has done 50 or 100,000 miles. This has to leave some mark. Moving on, you'll want to pop the hood and see how all the framework underneath fits together. Basically, all these structural railings here and cross sections in between should be straight and square, with anything looking as if it's out of shape, indicating a major collision that hasn't been fixed properly. The same goes at the back, where you'll open the trunk and take a look underneath the carpets. If the trunk floor looks bent, the car was probably hit from behind hard. Lastly, open all doors and check their frames. sills, pillars and so on for any signs of previous deformation which would be caused by a strong side impact. Any of these are huge red flags in my book, and I'd probably walk away from that car and look for something else. And yes, if you spot any corrosion anywhere, even small patches, keep in mind that this is hard to fix and it will become much worse in the following years. With the hood still up, take a look at the engine, which should be dry and without any visible leaks and ideally not washed recently. You can also check under the car to see if something's dripping underneath, which is never a good sign. In addition, it's a good idea to check all the fluids, engine oil, power steering, brakes, and so on, to see if their level is good and if it does not look odd or have a strange color. For example, a white-yellow substance on the oil filler cap can be caused by condensation that forms during frequent short trips, but also something more sinister like a cracked head gasket. The same applies to coolant, but here you need to be careful when opening the cap on the expansion tank because if the engine is at the operating temperature, this will be under considerable pressure. In that case, unscrew the cap slowly as you would, for instance, do with a bottle of Coke that's been shaken well. The coolant color differs depending on the vehicle. It can be blue, red or even yellow, but it must be transparent and without bubbles. Anything else points to a potentially serious problem. As for the cooling system, inspect the coolant hoses. They must not look cracked or swollen, and the radiator that it has no cracks or rust. Going further, check the wheels, all 4 of them, to see what the tires are like. If they are unevenly worn, one edge significantly more than the other, the alignment is off, and there's probably some sort of an issue with the suspension. To fix this, you'll probably have to replace the worn components and tires before doing the wheel alignment, which isn't going to be cheap. Next, the brakes. If you see any rust marks on the rotor, this means that either the pads are worn or the brake caliper is seized for one reason or another. And finally, while at it, check the shock absorbers. If their housing is greasy and oily, they are leaking and must be replaced. The next step is to check how the engine is running. For a start, get inside the car, turn on the ignition without cranking the engine and watch the dashboard. You should see an array of warning lights and indicators coming on when you turn the key, with most of them disappearing within a second or two. At this point, get back under the hood and have someone, the seller or anybody else, crank the engine while you listen carefully for any odd sounds or vibrations. This includes any metallic rattle, which could indicate timing chain issues, knocking that might be caused by bad tappets or bearings, or loud whining. Also, the engine should run smoothly at idle immediately after startup. If it shakes and splutters, it's probably not firing on all cylinders, indicating potential issues with ignition or fuel injection. Now go to the back of the car, tell the helper to press the throttle slightly, say to 3000 RPM, and watch the tailpipe. If you see any smoke coming out, its color can tell a lot. If it's blue, the engine is burning oil. Black smoke is caused by a rich air-fuel mixture, and if it's white and thick, the head gasket might be cracked. I'd be especially worried if the car continues billowing smoke even after warming up and would probably walk away. With all that done, what's left is to take a car for a short test drive, as this will ultimately reveal its true colors. So get behind the wheel, shift into gear and set off. While doing so, observe what happens when moving from the standstill. If you notice any shaking or juddering, the clutch or flywheel might be worn, assuming it's a manual, or even worse, if it's an automatic, the transmission could have some sort of an issue. Once on the road, and assuming there isn't much traffic or pedestrians around, press the throttle to see how the car speeds up. Sure, the actual acceleration depends on several factors, the vehicle's weight, how powerful its engine is and so on, but regardless of that, it should pull smoothly without hesitation or delay. Repeat these accelerations a couple of times and try to keep your eye on the rear view mirror to see if there is any smoke coming from the exhaust under the load. Then find a nice stretch of road and, as you drive, listen carefully for any odd noises as you go over the bumps on the road. Knocks, bangs or squeals, which would indicate something's broken or worn in the suspension. Also, while driving on the straight, the car shouldn't pull to a side. If it does, again, there's almost certainly something wrong with the suspension or the wheel alignment. The same goes for braking. If it pulls to one side when you slam the brakes, it's quite likely the brakes on the opposite side aren't doing their job properly. In addition, vibrations that can be felt with the brakes on indicate warped rotors, which must be replaced. Assuming all the previous inspections haven't revealed anything dramatic and you're quite close to saying, yes, I'll buy this car, there's one more thing to check. The aircon, power windows, seats and so on, depending on what's on board. Basically, turn all the buttons and knobs on the dashboard to see if the things they control are indeed operating as they should. For instance, a broken aircon can cost hundreds of dollars to fix, so that's something to have in mind. Lastly, before actually buying the car, make sure the seller has all the necessary paperwork and documentation, because if something's missing, you might have a lot of issues in the future when registering it to your name. So viewers, that would be all. I hope this advice will help you pick a car in a good condition, which won't cause much trouble down the road. And even when something does come up, you can find out how to deal with it in our other videos here or on our website mechanicbase.com, where we have a ton of automotive related stuff. Bye!